Hello again, Indah Melindasari from Wonderland Consulting. I have over 10 years experience as a migration agent and was once a migrant myself. Please click subscribe to get all the best Australian immigration content and updates. Firstly, I want to say COVID rates are on the rise with the introduction of the Delta variant into Australia. And this has made what was already a difficult situation into even more a difficult one. I just want to say on behalf of myself and the entire Wonderland Consulting team, we hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and that we in Australia and around the world will get through this if we work together. Now let's get started with the latest immigration news for October 2021. Part 1. Update on borders and travel restrictions. New Face of Australia International Border (DPD) Digital Passenger Declaration will come into effect. Australians might be able to travel outbound in November. The UK will be the first route. Part 2. Changes to business and work visas. Updated fee for assessment of qualifications and experience at TRA. Victoria now opens for investor and significant investor streams subclasses 188B and 188C visa nomination update. New nomination criteria framework for New South Wales business visa. Part 3. Other immigration and visa news. Additional English proficiency requirement and approval of sponsorship for Australian partner visa application. Flexible requirements for Australian citizenship application will apply for certain applicants. Alright, let's start with part 1. Update on borders and travel restriction. With countries all over the world slowly opening up their international borders, vaccine certificates have become an essential travel document, whether in a physical or digital copy. To streamline this process and add extra precaution, the Australian government plans to roll out a Digital Passenger Declaration or DPD. The DPD will replace the physical incoming passenger cards we all use to fill in and will also to replace the current COVID-19 travel declaration form that have been used during the pandemic. It will have verified evidence of your COVID vaccination linked with the QR code. The Digital Passenger Declaration Australia will also capture essential information up to 72 hours before a person boards a plane. The Digital Passenger Declaration will provide the capacity to collect, verify and share an Australian government-approved and digitally verified documents including travel, health and vaccine status information of international travelers with the state and territory public health authorities. Accenture, who has been awarded the contract to develop the DPD, is still in the process along with the Australian federal government, so there is no official rollout date yet. The Digital Passenger Declaration will undergo testing before it is applied at major Australian airports as support for the reopening of the Australia international border. But when exactly will the border reopen? Our next bit of news is that if vaccination rates stay on track, then travel restriction could be lifted as soon as November of this year. This easing of restriction will be for Australian citizens and permanent residents to travel in and out of Australia freely without getting a travel exemption or having specific reasons to leave the country. As the UK has listed Australia on their green list, meaning that Australians will not have to undergo quarantine as long as the proper testing requirements are met, then this should be first on the list of many travelers. Travel industry experts expect US, Singapore, Japan, New Zealand as the countries to have flight routes open again with Australia. As for incoming travelers, the word now according to the tourism minister, is that the borders are expected to be open before Christmas, but exactly to whom it will be open to remains to be unknown. Part 2. Changes to business and work visas. On to the latest news and updates about business and work visas, starting with the news that the Australian government announced an updated fee for assessment of qualifications and experience, which was conducted by Trade Recognition Australia or TRA. TRA provides different skills assessment programs based on your occupation, country of passport, where you studied, and the type of visa you seek. Those programs are Job Ready Program, TSS Skills Assessment Program, Offshore Skill Assessment Program, TRA Migration Skills Assessment, and Migration Points Advice. We have provided a complete updated list of the new fees for the TRA, and you can find the link below in the description box. There are new updates for the Investor Visa programs, as Victorian State Government opened the nomination for Investor Visa Subclass 188B and 188C. These are the subclasses for the investor and significant investor streams. Both offer a pathway to permanent residence through the Business Innovation and Investment Residence Subclass 888 visa. The changes to the Investor Visa to Australia 188B are as follows. Complying investments of Australian $2.5 million held for the duration of the provisional visa. Minimum skill select point score of 80. No requirements to make any additional investments. No requirement to invest in designated investment bonds. All complying with venture capital and private growth equity funds. Investment must be made into Victoria-based funds. Meanwhile, the changes to the Significant Investor Visa 188C are updated complying investment framework for complying investments of 5 million Australian dollars held for the duration of the provisional visa. All complying with venture capital and private growth equity funds investments must be made into Victorian-based funds. You can read about the full requirements and how to apply for these visas at the article link below in the description if you are interested in this program. Lastly, in our business visa news, New South Wales has made a new nomination criteria framework for the business and investor visa program. The requirements are broken down into 4 categories, which are personal background, business and education experience, personal and business assets, business turnover, and point test score. The list of target sectors this year are as follows. Number 1, target sectors in Sydney. Advanced manufacturing, food and beverage manufacturing, agriculture technology, aerospace and defense, renewable energy and sustainability, emerging digital technology, cybersecurity, and medtech. Target sectors in other regional areas of New South Wales: technology-enabled primary industries, critical minerals, and recycling and waste management. You can read about the full requirements and how to apply for a business and investor visa program of New South Wales at the link article in the description if you would like to learn more. Part 3. Other immigration and visa news. In other news today, we'll be starting with the planned reforms for the partner visa program that will come into effect at the end of the year. The first being that the sponsoring partner will now have to have their sponsorship approved prior to the lodgement of the partner visa application. If your sponsorship application is approved, you can continue your Australian partner visa application. The proposed framework for sponsorship application will separate the sponsorship and visa application processes, support information disclosure relating to domestic and family violence to the sponsor or the applicant, and enable sanctions to be imposed on sponsors who breach sponsorship obligations. The new sponsorship framework will also allow the professional Australian partner visa holders and certain prospective marriage visa holders who experience family violence, which leads to relationship breakdown, to continue the permanent visa application. The second change is regarding the English requirements updates. The partner visa pathway process takes places into two stages, whether applying onshore or offshore, and it will be at the second permanent stage where English requirements will be needed. So how to do these new requirements need to be met? Well, there are three different ways. The first one is English language proficiency level. The first proposed way is by showing that you have a certain English language proficiency level. Currently, the Department of Home Affairs set 5 different English language proficiency levels: functional English, vocational, competent, proficient, and superior English. The exact proficiency level for the English requirement for the partner visa is functional. B. Show reasonable effort to learn English. As an Australian partner visa applicant or a permanent resident sponsor, you may show a reasonable effort to learn English. For example, you may participate in Australian government-funded adult migrant English program. And lastly are the supporting evidence. Looking at the English language requirements for other Australian visas, supporting evidence as mentioned below may be sufficient to meet the English requirement. An appropriate score in an approved English language test, a valid passport issued by particular countries such as the United Kingdom, New Zealand, the United States of America, Canada, or the Republic of Ireland, or an education or qualification in or outside Australia for a nominated period where all instruction was in English. These changes will be to ensure the applicant has the best chance for integration and work opportunities in regards to the English requirements, and the sponsorship process will also be an effort to protect applicants in case where they may not know about the history of family violence on the part of their sponsor. Finally, our last news of the day is that the government will add more flexibility to the resident requirements for citizenship applications. The new special resident requirement will offer alternatives for certain applicants that may be unable to meet this requirement. The resident requirements requires you to be present in Australia for a certain amount of years and not be gone from Australia for certain time periods within the year. And as if you are a frequent business traveler, then may be difficult for some to meet. These special requirements will be applied in 2 different circumstances, which are activities supported by particular organizations. The special resident requirement may apply to you if you want to participate in activities supported by specific organizations, such as the Australian Olympic or Paralympic committees, Tennis Australia, Cricket Australia, or a federal government agency. Before applying, you must have been resident in Australia for at least 2 years on a valid visa that provides a permanent residency. You may have been lawfully present in Australia for at least 180 days during those 2 years, including at least 90 days in the previous 12 months. Number 2, work that requires overseas travel. You may be subject to the specific resident requirement if you have been engaged in specific types of work, your employer can show us that you work in that occupation for at least 2 of the previous 4 years, and you had to travel outside of Australia due to the work commitment. You must have had a valid Australian visa for at least 4 years prior to applying, with at least 1 year as a permanent resident. You must also have spent a total of 16 months or 480 days in Australia during the 4 years preceding your application, with at least 4 months or 120 days of that time in the year directly preceding your application. This will apply for the following occupations: a member of a ship's or plane's crew, a worker on a resource or sea installation, an S&P or ACX All Australian 200 listed company's chief executive officer or executive manager, a scientist who works for the following organization: an Australian university with a PhD in their field of study and is conducting research and development that will benefit Australia, or the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, a member of the Association of Australian Medical Research Institute that does medical research, a medical specialist who is a fellow of an organisation listed in Schedule 4 Part 1 of the Health Insurance Regulation 1975, and holds a suitable qualification in respect to the organisation and is worldwide known in their field, a writer or artist working in the visual or performing arts who currently holds or has held a distinguished talent visa. Well, that's the run-up of all the changes and updates for October 2021. If you have any questions about how these changes might affect you or benefit you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Leave a comment or questions and we will get back to you as soon as possible. You can find our contact details in the description and in the comments, so feel free to send an email or call with an inquiry, and our advisors will be there for all your visa needs. Wonderland Consulting is here to help you. As always, thank you for watching.